News Radio 570 WSYR podcast. Central New York's Saturday morning news with Jay Fishman can be heard at 6 on News Radio 570 WSYR.
You know, Joy, it's amazing. Democrats are so angry about this law that they have in Arizona. 70% of people seem to like it.
They're not used to hearing about that.
Yeah, you know, you got to have a bitter fight over everything. That makes it worth it, right?
The Democrats can't possibly understand that. You have to operate in the dark of night against the will of the people, or they can't get it.
Well, on top of the fact that 40% of Hispanics, even 50% of Democrats like this law, Joy, what's amazing is the national law, the thing that they're so angry about that's written is that, you got to show me your papers. What's nationally written, it's in the Department of Justice handbooks, is that if you are a resident alien, you have to carry your green card, your papers at all times.
Right. And the stupidest people are the ones who are running around, well, federal law trumps state law, superstition. Only when they're in conflict, which they're not. She just codified it in their state legislature to basically what the law already is.
Well, it doesn't seem to be. The comparison is Nazi Germany. This is just, it's not anything like that. It's making sure that people are legally in the country. It's enforcing something that was already illegal.
Well, and the other stupidity is either people don't live in, the people that are complaining the loudest clearly don't live in very diverse communities, because I live next to two sanctuary cities, and I can assure you, if the cops decided today they were going to go out and round up everybody who looked like they might be Hispanic, they'd stop every second car.
Obviously, these officers have done, Joy, a good job. They know what they're doing. Why do people think they're going to go round up every Hispanic that's there in Arizona?
Because they get too much of their information from morons and people with really, really obvious agendas.
Yeah.
Obama and the Democrats benefit the most to whip up a race war. This is 1968 all over again, only on steroids. And I lived in Chicago in 1968, and I remember what it was like when you couldn't go outside of your own street because of all the fires and rioting and stuff. So, yeah, it's the same thing.
But there are Democrats in Arizona. 50% of them like the bill. So how come they're not speaking out in support of Governor Brewer?
There are no good Democrats anymore. It doesn't matter what. We learned that during the health crimes battle. There are no good Democrats. There's a lot of bad Republicans, but there's certainly not a single good Democrat. Which one of them behaved admirably during the health crimes fight?
So nobody can speak out, no Democrat in favor of the bill, no one to say.
Against this administration, if you plan on running for anything again as a Democrat.
Is the intimidation in the party that bad right now?
This is a Chicago thugocracy. Of course it is. I mean, they'll start with bribes, and then they'll work up to, gee, your grandchildren are cute. Hope nothing ever happens to them kind of behavior. Sure, that's typical Mayor Daley stuff.
Well, Jan Brewer talked about Monday and Tuesday that nationally people don't understand. People are getting so much misinformation. So what happens with the bill moving forward? How do you help people with this bill?
Well, you do what we're doing. You keep talking about it. I'll keep talking about it on my website, joytiz.com. And honestly, I think this problem may solve itself unless the unions do a lot better job than I think they're going to be able to do of whipping up some race riots. I think what ultimately may happen, and most likely outcome will be, is, as you said, the police officers are going to do exactly what the law tells them to do, and no one's going to be damaged by it, and the whole thing's going to ultimately blow over when there isn't a mass roundup and internment of everybody who looks Hispanic in the state of Arizona, which is about half the population.
And 40% of them say they like the idea, they like the law.
Right. I think this thing may take care of itself. Obama's so busy throwing his Cloward and Piven stuff at us every hour that I don't know how long this will actually hold up. There will be challenges. There's always been already phony lawsuits being filed, but what people have to understand is that nothing can happen in the courts until someone's actually harmed by this. There's no groundbreaking stuff in this bill. Reasonable suspicion, probable cause have been with us forever. A police officer can't stop and talk to you even for a couple of minutes without some kind of a reason for it. And race can never be that reason.
Well, who should people be listening to? Because there really is, if you hear about Juarez or down the border towns, some serious danger for the people who live in those areas. Cops being killed, women being raped, the kidnapping. It's all a little sick and scary.
Well, Janet Reno Napolitano, when she was governor, was begging the federal government for help. This is the one of the very few powers the Constitution actually gives to the federal government. The Democrats are perfectly happy to let them regulate what we eat and what we breathe and what we drive, but when it comes to following through on an actual constitutional mandate, that's a horse of a different color.
Joy, I had a caller last week who disagreed with me. He said the president's absolutely right. This is unconstitutional because Congress has the power to naturalize, and only Congress. And I know you have some experience with immigration law, and the impression I get is, sure, Congress has the power to naturalize. These people aren't interested at all in naturalization.
Right. there's many, many benefits in staying below the radar. Here in California, you're still going to get public assistance and Medicaid, and your kids can go to school without being logged into the system. I think you have to understand, too, that, and before I lived in the Palm Springs area, I lived in San Diego, so I'm not completely unfamiliar with the immigration issue. And even practiced immigration law at one time, but I'm recovering from being a lawyer now. But you have to, unless you live there and experience it, it's impossible to really comprehend what's going on. There was a time when our big worry was people would come across the border wanting to take jobs away from us. That has now become the least of our problems. We've got a terrible cabal going between Hugo Chavez and Iran and Russia, and I don't even want to think about what they may be bringing over the border at will.
Well, and there's another point. We talked to Trent Franks a couple of weeks ago, congressman in Arizona's 2nd District, and he said the easiest way to bring a nuclear weapon into our country right now would be put it in a wheelbarrow full of marijuana and bring it across our southern border.
Absolutely. It is so incredibly porous.
And here's the one that, after the health care debate, and it blows me away. The Civil War was fought over, at the core of it, slavery, but states' rights. And so President Obama, again, blowing off his history over how big of a deal it is.
Well, history is not Barack Obama's strong suit. If you listen to his Cairo speech and you heard his comments he made about how the Cold War was won by the people of the Soviet Union, had nothing to do with Ronald Reagan, he doesn't know any history. What he's doing is he's following an agenda that was set out for him by his puppet master, George Soros, and it's completely consistent with the agenda that they post on the Communist Party USA website, if anybody wants to take a look at it, or at George Soros' site, the OSI Institute, Open Society Institute. So you're absolutely right. There is an agenda to not only do away with state sovereignty, but national sovereignty and turn us into a part of a big global order. He's already talking at the G20 about global regulations under banking.
News Radio 570 WSYR podcast.